It's getting pretty dark and grey in the UK right now, and I needed a little dose of sunshine. So we're in Sulani, and since the new expansion pack, Adventure Awaits, just came out like a billowing plastic bag that gets caught on the handle of a wheelie bin, I thought I would make use of the new lot type and make a hotel retreat. Except because this game has more bugs than a summer fruit fly infestation, and I hadn't been spamming that save button as much as required, I lost half of my progress during this build. So we just have the hotel pool area today, but we're going to do lots of customized decorative detailing with too much tool mod fine tuning and curve rotating. So if you're looking for a cute, simple build with coherent commentary, you're in the wrong place. But now that you're here, you might as well subscribe as a joke. So as usual, I have my handy little mannequin here for scale. And we're going to start really by setting this lot up with some live edit things, rocks mostly. I had the idea that this would be like a seaside, beachside sort of hotel resort thing, but elevated on some kind of like artificially constructed sea rock bed thing. With the terrain higher, so I'm just going to make like a circular wall here. I wanted this to have a lot of custom shapes, so we're getting rid of that square lot exterior line as quickly as possible, and just making our own circular little lot shape here. Two sort of rocks. There's these very like sea bashed looking ones, and then some more precise looking human man-made sort of stonework looking ones. And then I'm just going to raise the terrain within this so that we can have that as our sort of base level to then build upon as we go through this build. So I've left two little open areas for some a sort of sandy beach natural path that we'll build a little later on, but I'm just lowering all of these rocks down with the tool mod, nudging them into the ground. I do use a lot of tool mod in this build. If you don't have tool mod, it's okay, you can still download this from the gallery, you don't need tool mod. It's just very handy for having that precision that I like to have in builds where I'm going a little bit too over the top, a little bit of a maniac, and wanting far too much control over my objects than the game will allow me to have, so it's a must-have staple for me. So I'm just smoothing these ramp sort of areas up, and then I wanted to try and just make this very natural looking path up. I wanted to have this juxtaposition of sort of like, it's all very nature left alone, sandy beach like outside of this hotel resort area, and then it becomes very sort of pristine, precise, man-made as we enter the resort grounds. So here there's a little cut, and I've marked out where I want some different areas to be, and the first thing I'm going to do is surround what's going to be the pool area with a kind of custom wall. I'm using like three things here. One of them is a Jungle Adventure, that's the one. Jungle Adventure sort of rock thing. One's a curtain rail, and the other one is this plant I found. I'm not quite sure where that's from, so don't ask me because I don't know. But to make the curve, I'm going to use my little curved wall trick where I get out a curved wall, align these wall items to the curve, and then pull them away, because you can't rotate them freely. They will only rotate by 45 degrees at a time if you try and rotate them with the square bracket keys, and it's a wall item. It's not going to let you do like a freehand rotation even if you hold Alt. So I align them using this little curved wall trick if I'm trying to make a nice curve that isn't attached to a wall. So I'm just going to do that all the way around and make this nice sort of like neat area that we're going to work on for the main area for this pool. Like I said, the other sections, the hotel, I did plan to do that, but I was a moron and didn't save this build, and then the game crashed. So we'll see that later on, but the game crashed, and I don't want to tell you how much I lost. There was not a single plant placed, and when you get to the bit where the crash happened, you will see quite how many plants were placed at the time, and I had to redo the whole thing. But we'll get there, and a little bit later we'll relive that trauma. But if you are familiar with my channel, you will be familiar with this thing where I place the same item over and over again to make some kind of unique curved shape that the game doesn't really want me to do, just because I feel like if the game doesn't want me to do something, I will just find a way to do it, just out of spite, to an extent, and to see if the game breaks when I do it or not. And that's probably why I also end up with quite a few bugs. I am blaming the game for the crash that occurs later on in this, because I still don't think it should have crashed, but it potentially was because I'd placed quite so many items in all of these positions that the game doesn't really want me to be doing. But hey ho, you know, maybe Paralives will be a bit more amenable to my to my taste in detailing when that comes out later in the year. But for now, we're still stuck with this. So we're gonna lower the terrain down, and the wall you see I've made as a sort of like barrier to raise the earth behind it because I didn't want this sheer annoying like earth slope that you get when you do terrain editing in the game. So I'm just going to end up covering that up a bit more as we go through. But right now I'm trying to make this very much tiered land area for the water to go in, because I wanted it to look like one of those like beach pools where there's no steps in, you just like walk into it and it's incredibly shallow and just gets deeper as you walk in. That's what I was trying to do with this. So it's not actually a pool, it's a pond, but the Sims can obviously still go in it, and you know, they can even have a shower in there now if they want to in the deep part. But a lot of this is just smoothing the terrain over, making sure it's all level, and also not peeking through any of the areas that I don't want it to peek through. It does surprise me that the terrain is still quite so limited in this game. It's not very smooth compared to other games I've played, for example, like Planet Zoo and everything. The terrain in that is, you feel like you're in the future when you play that game compared to The Sims. And if I had a better PC, I'd potentially actually play Planet Zoo, but I'm not there yet. I'm still waiting to get one. Figuring out what water I want here, I just left it as the sort of clean type, and then I'm going to make this terrain paint at the bottom just a sort of concrete. Now I have made this wall around here, which I had recorded me doing that, but it's actually not going to remain because when the crash happens a little bit later on, it deletes the whole thing and I'm not able to place it back in again, so I've skipped through that. But I'm going to just use a wall item here, and it was actually quite finicky and pernickety to do, so it was the worst thing that had happened from the crash that bit got deleted. I was very annoyed. But I'm using some of these live edit sort of grass rectangular pieces here to cover that up and create my own custom pool edge, and again using foliage to hide all of these places where the terrain actually isn't reaching that height. We're just going to imply that it is with some terrain and some various other things. And a little bit of tool mod again just to nudge these pieces down, place that water back in again, and here I have kind of gone ahead a little bit, but all I've done here, and I will show you, is I've used a live edit object, and it's this sort of grass, I guess it's grass from the Enchanted by Nudists pack, and I just stuck that on the top there to cover it all up. I hadn't really planned this, so I feel like I do place some things that then get so covered up that it sort of omits the point of me having placed them originally in the first place, but there we go, that's the process. We just end up with far more things than we needed. I'm coming in again with some various grasses here because I figured that this area is kept quite well. There's probably a gardener and sprinklers to keep it warm in the summer because it's obviously quite a dry area. However, you know, it's still got some wilderness, a little bit of grasses and things. And then I'm going to come in with this live edit rock. I'm not quite sure which one it is. It's just a base one or something, and a few of them. And then these ones that are very flat, I wanted to use to sort of edge this area and make it look like there's some like rock pools. Of course it's all very synthetic, but they make the effort to make these very synthetic but also natural looking areas in, you know, holiday resorts and things. So I'm also using some pond objects. We've got these waterfalls here. We're going to use 2 big ones, 2 small ones. I just wanted to create a few like water features, make it look a bit more interesting. And I picked a swatch that matched the live edit rock that we've used here. So I'm just nudging a few things up and down, making something that I think looks like a nice natural but also synthetic rock formation around the pool. And then I'm going to pick some trees to go in here. So we've got a few different palms that I put in, and I just sized them down a little bit because they're all far too large when you get them out as the base size. So size them down a bit, a few different variants. And then this tree that looks like a bush, I thought that looked quite Mediterranean tropical. That's sort of the vibe I was going for. And then I've put a little pool ladder here, which I don't think is usable, but I thought it looked a bit silly without one. So of course we've got some gratings we've put down so that the water doesn't spill all over the place everywhere. And what we're going to do now, let's see. Oh, we're just going to do a bit more foliage around this area that's going to become the seating area with some beds. And I will be putting in a bar area later on. I don't think the crash has happened yet, so I'm still merrily along, you know, going along my way, thinking that this is going to be a build that includes an actual hotel with it as well. But, you know, fate did not have that be, you know, the plan for this week. This week it was just a pool. But I did hope to do the hotel. Next video I will do the hotel, but it's actually allowed me to, once this crash happened and I realized there was no way in hell that I was actually going to get a pool done and a hotel done, I almost tried a bit harder on the pool because I felt like I had a bit more time. So in some ways, maybe it was a good thing, and maybe I should just start taking more time to actually do everything I want to do in a build rather than feeling a little bit of time pressure. So here I'm going, and I wanted this to, like, it had all sorts of different layers, all sorts of different curves, and this is where the crash happened. And I rebuilt all of this, but look how similar it looks. I'm so impressed how similar I made it look. I feel like I could have just not included it and you wouldn't have actually known that a crash occurred there. But it did, and it was very stressful. But we're back here now after many, well, hours of rebuilding what needed to be rebuilt. And I'm finishing off a few more of these garden areas. I was thinking a little bit about the entry and the walk up to the hotel, and I wanted it to be pretty cute and sort of a transition from beach to something a little bit more impressive with the garden work. So again, some grasses, some rocks, some more trees which have like fruit on them. I'm not quite sure what the fruit is. It's just like green. It could be anything really, something tropical that I've not heard of before. But we are about to move on to the most maniacal section of this video that I had this idea that I would do. It's going to be a canopy over the pool, and of course I had to build the whole thing piece by piece because that's just what I'm like. So here we are, and we're using my favorite item, the roof beam, and I'm going to be placing, I don't even want to know how many of these, just all along the pool floor. And in hindsight, I should have done this before I messed with the terrain, because now these are all being placed at various different levels on the you know, wavy and uneven pool floor of this build, which means that when I get the tool mod out to try and elevate these into a flat sort of canopy roof, they're all going to be all over the place. So you'll see that I'm about to do this now, and yeah, it's not the neatest thing, is it? So I fixed that, but I'm not going to make you watch all of that, so I do that off camera, and I've recolored it this like green color, which I thought looked nice. But now we are going to go through, and I'm going to show you this part of the tool mod, because I do like to show a bit of tool mod. I know a lot of people use tool mod and they're just like, anyway, I'm going to use tool mod now, and then they come back when they've done it. But I like to show the process and quite how annoying it is. So I'm going along these beams sort of bit by bit, and I'm elevating them just a little bit more each time than I had done in the previous elevation. And what it's going to end up with is a nice sort of curve rather than a slope. So it's got a really nice wave sort of appearance to the roof here. And now I wasn't quite sure what pillars I wanted to use. I ended up sort of putting these white ones down, but then they are just going to quickly change in a moment to some different ones, because they have the ones I've decided to use have some brick at the bottom, which I thought blended in more nicely. Now they're actually not going to be able to see that part by the end of it, so it was a bit irrelevant in the end, but there we go. I also thought I would put a bit of foliage on this canopy just to blend it in a bit more and make it look like, I didn't want it to look like it had just been built but had been here for like a little bit of a while, and so there are some things growing there. And I'm going to work a little bit more on this path because the rest of the lot here doesn't actually have any terrain paint or anything right now. I wanted to work on this bit now. We've done so much of the pool just to sort of see what the exterior and the entrance to this pool is going to look like. So again, I'm doing all of this with the terrain paint, not actually any of the flooring, because I like to be able to make these curves and have things look a little bit more unique than just square and triangular pieces. So again, we're now going to come back in with another one of my favorite items, which is the Jungle Adventure Live Edit wall piece. And I scale this almost all the way down so I can place it over and over and make these like fluid looking curves. And the idea with these ones is that these ones are going to be sort of more sandy flower beds with a different type of foliage in there. Again, I'm thinking far too much about this, but I really wanted the foliage flower beds to look like they'd been sort of designed in different ways and had different plant species in there that blended in with the tropical kind of Mediterranean vibe of this hotel that we're doing. But I do enjoy, my brain just zones out and I have a really nice time when I'm making these curves. So I'm now going to do a little bit of stop motion for these flower beds because I sort of did them all. I didn't want to undo them and redo them all. So we placed these trees down just to create a little bit more of some aerial sight lines, I guess. And then I've used a combination here as we go through in this little sort of stop motion with some like cacti and some more, I guess, dry growing looking plants, some like succulent varieties, things that don't need the kind of hardcore sprinkler systems that presumably the stuff around the pool needs in this dry and arid environment. some red flowers and orange, because I found that when I go abroad to sort of hot countries, the flowers tend to be more like orange and red compared to more like temperate climates where there's a whole variation. I don't know what it is about the orange and red ones, but they seem to just like do better over there. And then I'm going to fill this area in around the sort of shell that we have here that we'll work on at another time. But I didn't go too close to the wall because I have plans with this little section here. That wall is not going to be the sort of final shell of the hotel when we get there. But this is kind of what it looks like now. So now we're going to move on and do a pool bar. So I got rid of this sort of little area within the exterior of the pool just to build in a pool bar, and I did it specifically in this place because I wanted it to have access for like guests at the pool from the poolside area, but then I wanted to create a little walkway through for presumably staff who tend to the bar to be able to quickly enter and exit the hotel to get to the pool bar if that's where they're being, you know, positioned for their shift. But again, I'm using all sorts of little bits and pieces to make something that looks quite custom here. I've got these wooden pre-made canopies rather than the one that I insist on making myself this time because I thought that would be a bit much into doing 2 in 1 build. And again with the curtain rail just to create this kind of mount, I guess, on this wall. And we've got a bar here and a backdrop, and of course I placed my own cabinets over that because I didn't like how it looked. I liked the mirrored part with the drinks and things, but I didn't like the front, so I placed over that, and we're going to do the same with this bar and making it a lot more wooden using these mountain retreat sort of wooden slat wall items. And they did poke through the top just a little bit. So again, I used the tool mod just to nudge those down so that they're not fighting with the worktop of that bar area. And this all does work, and I can clip chairs to it and things. It's fine. It doesn't interrupt the use of the bar. A few more curtain rails to create the 2 edges of this, and I had to delete the wall because of course I noticed that the canopies weren't perfectly aligned in the middle. I had to redo that, of course, because it was doing my head in. But it looked very much more, it was worth it because it was annoying me, basically, is what I'm saying here. Now, I do hope this little gap that I've left is enough for Sims to get through. I haven't tested it yet. So that could potentially change by the end of this entire build. But right now, we're just going to say, yeah, that's definitely enough room for a Sim to get through there. I've also used a live edit column, actually, as well. That looked quite Mediterranean on the 2 sides there. That's not an actual game column. It's just a live edit one. And I think we're pretty much done with that. I just need to adjust these plants a little bit, and I will create some terrain under there and not just leave it as grass. But we're now actually going to decorate the sort of seating area with these lounge chairs and some of the... Which pack are they from? I don't know. I never know what packs things are from. I just pick things that look nice. But I do know that the table's not actually a table. It's a stool. But we are going to place some parasols here as well, just to finish that up. And then I found that in the new pack, there's this, I mean, finally, there's this hot tub that actually sinks into the ground instead of sticking up out of it like some kind of sore thumb. So we've put that in there, and I thought, you know what, we can blend this in with the pool. So I've extended the rock pool area, and I really like that item. I've been trying to make things like that by adjusting the floor levels and things and having to deal with glitchy Sims forever. So I'm glad they've finally put something like that in the game. But I thought I'd add a bit more foliage as well, just to, you know, decorate things just a little bit more. And then the final thing here, oh, I did use a fountain to create this sort of like foot wash area that they always insist on having in front of pools, but then I realized that Sims can't walk through fountains, so I did change that. But now we're going to go through, have a little look at this now that it's finished. Of course, the shell's still in the background. There's not much I can do about that. But I also could not be bothered putting Sims in this build because it's not finished. So here's some mannequins enjoying the pool area. And you can just pretend that they're having a fun time and splashing around in the water. She's about to get in the jacuzzi. She's just, you know, psyching herself up, taking quite a while. There's even some on some sunbeds. He's not got much shade, he might get sunburned. I did think about using a red one actually to give it sunburn, but it was a bit too red, so then I didn't. But very detailed. And here's an 8-year-old ordering a cocktail. So there we go. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind to yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.